There we go. Okay, so back to our questions.
All right.
You were big into sports as a kid and in your career as well. What modifications, if any, did you create to help yourself with that or make that easier?
Okay, I guess the only modifications would have just been stuff I did maybe subconsciously, but growing up here in Astro, of course I grew up in a time where kids just played all the time. We were outside playing constantly, and there was a pretty good group of boys that lived fairly close on our street. So we most days, even after school, sometimes we'd play baseball, we'd play football, we'd play wiffle ball, we'd play basketball. And I think I probably developed a lot of sports skills there that I really shouldn't have because of my eyesight, just because of playing so much. So I could play baseball, even though it doesn't make sense that I could, up to a point. Once I got in high school or even junior high and it got faster, the ball moved quicker, I had trouble. And everything, football, was kind of the same. But when we got into high school, I kind of drifted more towards track and cross country because it didn't take eyesight as much. And I kind of intuitively knew that. I remember thinking when I was a freshman or sophomore that I didn't have, I couldn't see a baseball well enough to play, and basketball, peripheral vision and depth perception and shooting. I played. I even, started some, but it was going to be a handicap any way you cut it. And we didn't even have football here at Ash Grove, but that wouldn't have been my thing anyway until I was a little older. But I realized with track and cross country, it seemed to me like you didn't have to have great eyesight. All you had to have was some guts and some grit. And I remember thinking, well, I can do that. If the goal is to suffer, I can suffer. That's okay. If the goal is to make people bleed, I can make them bleed. So I kind of gravitated towards that. And track and cross country I was right at the very tail end, but it was kind of a big deal at Ash Grove through the 70s, and there were guys that I looked up to also. So I originally went into that because I didn't have to worry about my eyesight. I could see the guy in front of me and how far he was in front of me, or see the finish line, or whatever it might be. So, it turned out I was fairly good at that, and it gave me something to be a part of and to focus on and to kind of get me through life, I guess. And it gave me some notoriety, and I started breaking records up here, so I get my name on the record board in high school. And that kind of snowballed then. It helped me to get through college because I had a direction, and it gave me some grit, some guts, like we called it back then. Don't quit, just stick with it. So I guess the modification was the sports that I went into, because I picked something that I could do that didn't take a lot of eyesight, and then I made a career out of it. I wound up going into coaching and teaching because of that, because of cross country and track. And I wound up coaching everything from softball to basketball. And that grit that I learned through athletics, that stick-with-itness, I guess, that you have, put up with the pain and jump the hurdles and whatever it takes to get through it, that's what you do. So even in college and classes, I found ways to get around things. I found ways to deal with it or get by or to make it work somehow, that I guess I probably learned through athletics and through sports. And I've done the same thing teaching, I suppose, too. I found ways to adapt and get by and get around things.
So you think maybe if you hadn't had that, if you hadn't found running or developed that, you think you would struggle more today in life? You think it would have been harder for you?
Yeah, and I would say that the thing that saved me, I guess, I've always said that sports is what saved me. Athletics is what saved me. It wasn't some help at school. It wasn't some modification. It wasn't some new theory that just came out. None of that made a hoot at all. It was the sports, and it was me.
And the struggle, probably.
And the struggle, because I learned through the struggle. I learned what I could and couldn't do or how to deal with things on my own, which I think just made me stronger in the long run. If I'd had a bunch of help or excuses,
Might have made it harder.
It would have made it. I think it would have. It would have made it harder. And Mom and Dad didn't. They didn't want me to have an excuse.
Yeah.
They didn't look at it that way. We never really talked about it. Talking about it with you here today is the most I've talked about it in 40 years.
Wow.
Probably. We just didn't talk about it. You didn't acknowledge it particularly. It's just, yeah, you got it. We're going to, so what? Got a life, got to go on, has to go on. Let's just deal with it and do the best that we can. And meeting my girlfriend in college and stuff too, that gave me I wanted to get through college because she was getting through college. And I didn't want to let my family down either.
Yeah.
Too. I wanted to be sure I was successful for them also. So all of that, and I wanted to coach. So the only way to coach was to get a college degree.
Yeah.
So I had to get that college degree to be able to teach and to be able to coach. So that was a snowball effect from athletics. That taught me an awful lot of things. I always tell
your jumping point.
as my jumping point. I always tell kids at school, and I think this is very true, that you'll learn just as much, if not more, through participating in some extracurricular activity. I don't care if it's band, I don't care if it's football, I don't care if it's track. You're going to learn a lot of crap just by doing that.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things are way more valuable than sitting in a classroom. But you've got to sit in a classroom. That's the stuff you have to do.
Being in sports helped you in the class. It helped
you
be more resilient there too.
Yeah.
So kind of
gave me a focus because I don't know. I guess a lot of people would say this as an adult. There was some turning point, I guess, in their life maybe. And what would I have done if it hadn't have been for athletics? And I don't know what I would have done. But it might not have turned out as well as it did in the long run.
That's good. Okay. Next question. And this is maybe based more around when you were in school. Do you have a preference between direct instruction or things like group work or collaborative work?
Yeah, as a student, the collaborative work, and this really isn't just my opinion, it's kids that I remember going through school with. We didn't do a lot of that stuff when I was in school in the 70s, but it was just, no, it didn't work. It just flat didn't work. That's the bottom line. It was kind of a joke. You get one person to do it all. The rest of us wouldn't pay much attention or care.
Yeah.
But if it was more teacher-led instruction where you gotta, you have to take notes, and the more, what we would say now, the traditional method, far and away better than all this group work, collaborative learning gobbledygook that you throw at kids now. I don't think it works. It wouldn't have worked with me, I guarantee you.
Yeah. With your personality and all that, it was probably easier for you to have structure given by a teacher than to be open, and then you think you don't have to do any work.
Yep. Not only do
open-ended.
Not only do I think I don't have to do any work, I'm not gonna do any work. But that girl that's in my group, we'll get her to do all the work, and the teacher will never know the difference, and we'll turn it in and we're done.
That's a good perspective. All right. Last thing I want to talk about. What do you recall being the most frustrating or difficult thing to overcome regarding your visual impairment?
I guess probably math maybe would have been. The whole numbers thing. Kind of probably the way I saw stuff, computed it, was sort of a problem. Words and writing wasn't, but numbers seemed to be. I couldn't. Math was just hard for me. I just couldn't.
You had a little dyslexia with numbers, correct?
I didn't know that until I was much, much older. But yeah, I do. I flip numbers around just a little bit, and wouldn't have known that as a junior in high school that I even flipped that. Now I kind of watch for it, and I'll catch myself sometimes doing it. So I think what I did, I compensated again. I did things more just in my head. I could do a lot of different things that you would do with math just in my head. not written,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe not in the traditional way, and maybe in a different way than somebody else would have done it,
Yeah.
that I could get to it, to a point. It's kind of like that baseball. Once it got too fast, it was just too fast.
Yeah.
But once I got into more algebra stuff or higher level math, then I had problems
Yeah.
with that kind of thing. So in college, I just had to take, I don't remember what I had to take to get through. Maybe it was algebra, but I could get through that. And
The bare minimum on
the
that.
bare minimum, and get the credit,
Mm-hmm.
and move on to the things that I really wanted to do, like I needed for my
Yeah.
degree. So I guess that was probably the most frustrating. I didn't worry about it a whole lot, especially in high school and elementary school. I didn't get all stressed out about it. I just I was pretty
Was
happy-go-lucky. It was what it was. And really, I had more pressing things to worry about than class that day. I needed the bell to ring so I could see my girlfriend. I needed the day to end so I could practice,
Of course.
or whatever else, was important.
Mm-hmm.
So I just did what I did to get by and could.
And with
Did okay.
math in your generation, and when you were taught, there was a heavier focus on written algorithms and math rules, wouldn't you say?
I'd say probably so.
But you didn't think like that so much. You thought of it more logically
Yeah.
than writing it out on paper.
Yeah, I know I did. I can see that now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that stuff didn't resonate with me too well because I just
That was
couldn't pick it
probably
up.
harder then, since that wasn't the kind of instruction that they were looking for at that time. They were looking for something
Probably.
that was harder for you to do.
Probably so. I do everything in my head, even now, and always have. When I teach history now, junior high history.
Yeah.
Everything's in my head. It doesn't do me any good to have notes. I can't see them anyway without stopping and focusing and getting them up to
Yeah.
here. That didn't help me. It's just got to come from the files for the
Mhm.
most part. So that's what I do in class. I thumb through the files, and here's what we're talking about, the Gilded Age or whatever. Boom, there they are. Here we go. That's how I operate. Where
You probably
somebody
do
else
that
might
more
not.
so than other people
Probably.
do, because
'Cause
you're
it
not
has to be.
relying on that vision
No.
like a lot of people.
I remember doing that in college too, in class, like speech, when we had to take speech.
Yeah.
And I'd have notes. That didn't really work for
Really?
me. So whatever topic it was, I would have note cards because you had to turn them in.
Yeah.
But I didn't really look at them because I couldn't.
Yeah.
So I'd give my speech just kind of verbatim
Really?
off of the top of my head, and then just turn in my note cards.
Really?
Or any little presentation that we had to do for some education class that I had, I'd do that the same way. I'd just bring it from my head and present it. So I guess that's a modification.
Yeah, it
Two.
is. Yeah.
Uh,
A lifelong one.
yeah, I wouldn't have
Especially
thought of
with
it
your
that way
teaching.
at all back
Yeah.
then, but it would be, because it's a way to get around what you're traditionally
people would
supposed,
do.
what other people would do.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's very good. Well, I think that's all I've got for you today.
All right.
Thank you.
You're
for
welcome.
Speaking with me.
You're welcome.
Ugh. Looking cut off.